Hello and welcome to the show. I am Joe Tophat. Well, I gave you guys a choice which Scooby Doo movie I talk about. Ghoul School or Zombie Island. And you guys picked Zombie Island. Perhaps the best Scooby Doo movie ever made. Since I already reviewed its inferior sequel, and you guys wanted it, I might as well talk about the original, Scooby Doo on Zombie Island. So without further ado, let's begin. The movie begins with the gang on one of their usual mysteries, ending where the monster is a guy in a mask. Then it cuts to Daphne, who's appearing on a talk show telling the story. She explains to the host that the gang went their separate ways, having grown tired of always encountering guys in masks rather than real monsters. Daphne now works as a TV reporter. Fred is her producer. Velma runs her own mystery bookstore. And Shaggy and Scooby are constantly unemployed, having just lost their airport security job because they ate all the contraband food. Fred gets everyone together to celebrate Daphne's birthday and to go to New Orleans to find some real monsters for Daphne's TV show. I really appreciate how this movie doesn't have the gang experience some huge falling out. One of the things I didn't like about the first live-action movie was how the gang broke up because of some drama. I know friendships do end because of drama in real life, but I don't need it to happen in the Scooby Doo cartoon. Besides, friends can part on good terms due to things that happen in life, or because of different interests. Scooby Doo on Zombie Island allowed the characters to part as friends, so the story doesn't get bogged down with pointless drama, allowing us to get to the good stuff. Anyway, we see a montage of the characters encountering different monsters, only for them to turn out to be fake. Daphne finds this frustrating. She was hoping to find some real monsters for her show. I can understand why she feels that way. When I was a kid, I always preferred the Scooby Doo cartoons, like Scooby and Scrappy, 13 Ghosts, and whatnot, where the gang encountered real monsters. Don't get me wrong, I did watch the original Scooby Doo Where Are You, and The Pup Named Scooby Doo, and all those other Scooby shows, where the bad guy is a guy in a mask. But I always enjoyed it when the monsters were real. Maybe that's because I'm such a huge fan of Ghostbusters. A woman named Lena overhears their conversation and informs them that the home of her employer, Simone Lenoir, is haunted. Simone lives on an island called Moonscar Island. It got its name from a pirate named Morgan Moonscar, who once occupied it. According to Lena, Morgan Moonscar's ghost still haunts the island. Fred is skeptical, but Daphne is willing to visit Moonscar Island. Velma does some research and finds that a lot of people have disappeared on the island, so she's intrigued by the island as well. They travel to Moonscar Island by ferry, which is driven by Jacques, voiced by Jim Cummins. Fun fact, when Jim Cummins was a teen, he worked for a riverboat in New Orleans. It was because of this experience he learned how to do a Cajun accent. Okay, back to the movie. It is on this ride where Shaggy and Scooby were saved from getting eaten by gators by a fisherman named Snakebite, voiced by Mark Hamill. Snakebite hates tourists and is obsessed with catching a catfish named Big Mona. He doesn't serve much of a purpose other than to be a red herring. And I'm not talking about the character from a pup named Scooby Doo. See, I watched a lot of Scooby Doo growing up. They arrive on the island where there are a lot of cats. Scooby chases after them, causing a huge mess, which angers Simone and her new gardener Bo, voiced by Cam Clark. Scooby chasing the cats is a run-on gag in this movie, though it always feels out of character for me. 'Cause like I said, I watched a lot of Scooby Doo growing up, and I never remember him doing that prior to this movie. Maybe there was an episode of one of the shows that I missed where he did that, but all the ones I've seen, he never once chased a cat. If you do know an example of Scooby chasing a cat prior to this movie, let me know in the comment section. Anyway, they have their first ghost encounter, where the words "Get Out" mysteriously appear on the kitchen wall. Daphne is excited, but Fred is still skeptical. During the recording, a gust of wind blew, and the word "Beware" appears. Then Velma starts to float in the air. Fred is dismissive, believing it was caused by a wire or a magnet. Velma, on the other hand, doesn't believe it's caused by either. It surprised me how in that awful sequel that Velma was portrayed as being so dismissive of the supernatural. I know she didn't believe in ghosts in the original series, but in this movie Velma kept an open mind. It was Fred who didn't believe. When they looked over the footage, they found the ghost of Morgan Moonscar had written the word "Beware" on the wall. Simone tells them that the old pirate was said to have buried treasure on the island, but it was never found. Fred assumes that some guy is disguised as the ghost to scare them away to get the treasure. To be fair to Fred, that's not an unreasonable assumption. Given their long history, it's a high possibility that the ghost is just a guy in a mask trying to get the treasure. After some shenanigans involving the cats and Snakebites Pig, Shaggy and Scooby end up in a hole where they encounter the zombie of Morgan Moonscar, thus justifying the title of this movie. Velma starts to suspect that Bo is behind the whole thing, since he was the one who dug up that hole. Even after Bo saves her from getting stuck in quicksand, she still viewed him as a suspect. Some might think that Bo saving her should have taken him off of Velma's list of suspects, but I think she was being cautious. Saving her life could have been a ploy to throw off suspicion. Fred, Daphne, Shaggy, and Scooby come across one of the zombies. Daphne tries to unmask him, but it won't come off, even remarking that it feels real. Fred refuses to believe it and tries to take it off himself, only for the head to come off. Now Fred is forced to admit that the ghosts and zombies are real. Behind the scenes, there was some disagreement over whether or not to make the ghosts and zombies real in this movie. Some thought it went against tradition to have Scooby and the gang deal with real ghosts. However, it was pointed out that they had dealt with real ghosts in the past, like in the 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo. Even if they never encountered real ghosts in the past, having them be real in this movie is a strong selling point and keeps it very interesting. Anyway, back at the house, Lena tells the others that Simone had been dragged away by the zombies. Velma is able to see past her lie because of the footprints. She could tell that Simone in fact walked away and wasn't dragged. Turns out, Simone and Lena are the villains. They use voodoo dolls to tie up Fred, Daphne, Velma, and Bo. They didn't bother making dolls of Shaggy and Scooby because they didn't think they were a threat, a decision they would come to regret. Because Shaggy and Scooby are way more resourceful than anybody gives them credit for, and they often save the day more than once in these cartoons. Heck, they probably dealt with real ghosts and monsters more than the others have. Now for the darkest backstory in the history of Scooby Doo. Both Simone and Lena were once settlers of Moonscar Island, where they worshipped a cat god. Morgan Moonscar and his pirates raided the island, chasing the settlers into a swamp, where they were killed by gators. Only Simone and Lena got away. They prayed to their cat god for vengeance, and they were turned into werecats. Needless to say, they took care of the pirates. Wow, a Scooby-Doo movie with a body count. Although in that awful sequel, they were trying to find what happened to Morgan Moonscar's treasure, it's heavily implied in this movie that both Simone and Lena got hold of the treasure, which makes sense because how were they able to make a living all those years? As for their victory, it proved to be hollow, since their call to vengeance brought a curse to them. Now they have to feed off the energy of people every harvest moon to maintain their immortality. Over the centuries, they had plenty of people come to the island, though oftentimes it was necessary for Lena to lure folks on the island, just like she lured the gang. This explains why the zombies are wearing clothes from different time periods. The zombies were their victims. You could argue that Morgan Moonscar and his men got what they deserved, but most of these people were innocent. In fact, Bo is really an undercover detective trying to find out what happened to these missing people. Also, Simone and Lena needed a ferry driver, so they granted Jacques immortality as well. Shaggy and Scooby come along and help save the day. Simone, Lena, and Jacques miss the harvest moon and perish. Now the zombies can rest in peace. Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island is a great movie to watch on Halloween. It's darker and more mature than most Scooby-Doo cartoons, but it still maintains its goofiness. The animation is pretty good and the songs are great. It took some chances and it paid off. According to Wikipedia, the story was taken from an unused script of SWAT Cats, which might explain why cats play a big role in this movie. It's also great that this movie was dedicated to Don Messick, the original voice of Scooby-Doo, who sadly suffered a stroke just before the making of this movie, so he couldn't reprise his role, and he passed away a year before it came out. What a great way to honor a great man. If you haven't seen this movie yet, check it out. As for the sequel, pretend it don't exist. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think. And don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later.